Aloha, and thanks for listening to the Why Hypnosis podcast, promoting quality hypnosis and NLP education on the islands of Hawaii, where I interview the top hypnotists, hypnotherapists, and NLP practitioners in the world so that you can learn their secrets to create positive changes in your life and the lives of others. You can subscribe to the Hawaii Hypnosis newsletter at www.hawaiihypnosis.org. You will receive subscriber-only content such as free contests, articles that help you learn hypnosis and NLP, updates on upcoming hypnosis/NLP trainings in Hawaii, plus an exclusive hypnosis audio that is only available to the newsletter subscribers. Thanks for listening. Aloha from Kauai, Hawaii. This is Antonio Perez with another podcast. My guest today is Vince Lynch from the UK. Vince Lynch is an amazing street hypnotist and a very well-documented pickup artist. Now, Vince, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time to allow me to interview you.
Thank you.
Would you like to take a few moments to let people know more about you?
Yeah. So I kind of met Anthony Jacquin in 2002. I learned hypnosis at 16. The reason I kind of learned hypnosis is kind of mixed reasons, but one of which is I actually, I saw a therapist actually, and she said I could have any book out her library. And one of the books I took was Frogs into Princes, and between that and something that I read about Ross Jeffries, by the weekend I was hypnotizing girls in nightclubs. Back then I used to frequent nightclubs pretty much every day, so which was kind of tied into why I saw the therapist initially. Yeah, and then I met Anthony Jacquin about 6 months later, and I'd already done kind of a lot of hypnosis over the internet through typing in chat rooms, and that kind of gave me an answer to talk about. And he very kindly started letting me frequent his training courses that he was running at the time and helping out the students. So I started doing that from 2003, and I guess I still do that today in one form or another.
Yeah, I was wondering how long you'd been a practicing hypnotist. I think I read something recently, like you'd been doing it for like 7 years or whatnot, so that gives me a better
yeah, I always say 7, but I only say 7 because that's how long I've technically been coaching. Really, it's 8. But yeah, I just tend to say 7 because it simplifies the entire conversation.
It makes it easier. You don't have to go into too much history.
Yeah.
Recently, you were talking to me about a new theory you have for how hypnosis works. Is this something you can delve into?
Yeah. Yeah, this is all quite, it's very simple, actually. The book basically goes through several points of philosophy. These philosophies, although I believe are completely unique, there can be parallels drawn from the hypnosis community and from the pickup community. For example, so I don't want to reference anyone from the pickup community, but the pickup community does mention quite a lot about hypnosis, and it's not quite clear exactly where hypnosis falls into place, because there's kind of no underlying theory of human behavior, but the philosophy basically has several main points, that all humans are profit-seeking, that they're always trying to seek a higher quality of life, and that by offering them an opportunity to have a better life, they should comply. And then the only reason why compliance appears to be responsiveness, which is where someone does things automatically as opposed to just having the choice to comply, is because of cognitive dissonance, which is an illusion that we create in someone's head by framing things outside of their choice. So I don't know if that came across quite lengthy, but there's other important points that allow this theory to work. And some of those are quite basic things, like fascination, but it's like, how do you build fascination and compliance? And one idea is that you pace and lead a person's personality. So you might actively know someone and have some kind of authority over their psychology that they don't have of their own psychology, through kind of perhaps cold reading or that sort of thing. this creates the effect that you know stuff about them that they don't even know about themselves, which creates cognitive dissonance. At the same time, it's kind of like a pace. You're kind of saying, hey, I know you, so now I can lead you to this new place. Hopefully that's kind of covered a huge section of the model in a very short conversation.
Actually, you did do a pretty good job there. I'm still kind of trying to piece the bits in my head. So I'm more of a visual person, so something I'd have to look at.
Yeah,
but,
well, basically, the theory doesn't need. It's kind of irrelevant on good subjects. Like, it's just pointless mentioning it. It's like, oh, okay, this person gets hypnotized anyway. Where the theory does come into play is on bad subjects. It's like, why is this person not paying me any attention? Why do they seem to not care what I do when I walk around the club? Why do they walk away from me when I go to hypnotize them? As opposed to the other person who gives me that look, their eyes are bright, wide open. They look at me. I tell them to put out their arms. They put them out even before I finish saying it. That person's the good subject. Now, why are some people so prone to comply with me? When I say comply, I do mean by choice. The choice part of it is not really my concern. Ken Atkin's kind of releasing some sort of stuff related to this, so I don't want to go into their territory too much. But basically, compliance and responsiveness are very close, and they're kind of attached through imagination and task-related instruction. So what we're now doing is some people comply, but we might say they're bad subjects, or a traditional hypnotist might. But that's no longer in my vocabulary. Someone who complies with me is always a good subject. It's just they're not experiencing cognitive dissonance, which I can then create by kind of utilizing their imagination through the compliance and then trying to build this sense of stuff happening outside their control. So this is a way of taking people who are mediocre subjects and turning them into an amazing subjects, and hopefully taking people who would otherwise pay no attention to you whatsoever, not care what you have to say, and then making them fascinated into you. So, yeah, there's loads of little bits and pieces.
This definitely sounds like it's gonna be a really interesting book. And this book, I know you said you were working on it. Is it currently out, or is it still in the process of having final touches?
I haven't had the book in my hands in about 2-3 months. I've got some guys who are professional copywriters and some guys who are going through kind of graphics and illustrations and that sort of thing. So, and also there's stuff to be assigned, like how many copies are printed and the actual, So all that stuff's kind of outside my control now, and it's all been dealt with. But yeah, the book's done.
Okay, good. It sounds like it's been set up to the universe.
Yeah. Loads of people have it in their hands. It's just I'm waiting for them to click go, and then it'll be out. But I act as if it's unique, but really these bits and pieces are out there already. It's just I've just decided to tie it in this way. There's other little bits of pieces of information that I realise every day that I then think, could be included in the book. For example, I came across this idea the other day that, so suppose I was going to make someone forget their name. I traditionally say a suggestion 3 times. So I might say, in a moment you're able to say your name, it's like you want to be able to say it, you just can't say it. And I might say, you're going to forget your name, like when you forget a celebrity's name, you try and recall that name, the more you try and recall it, the more forgotten it is. And then I might say another suggestion, which might be, I'm like Darren Brown, I can just make you forget things. Now, I had this thing the other day that I've kind of come across I've been hypnotizing a lot of people while traveling recently, far more than my usual, I don't know, I would estimate about 30 a week usually. I'm doing quite a lot. Anyway, that's beside the point. So I've kind of noticed when traveling across languages and cultures that you might say a way of phrasing a suggestion as a pace and lead. So I'm like Darren Brown and you forgot your name. A celebrity when you can't recall your name. if someone doesn't understand that particular way of describing that particular pace and leads, then it kind of implies, because they don't know what it means, it might imply that you're saying a pace and lead that makes no sense to them. So it might be that the entire routine falls apart just based on that. Is that anything clear?
Oh, that's definitely clear for me.
Because if I say I'm like Darren Brown, and now you forgot your name, and they don't know who Darren Brown is, I could be saying anything in their mind. So how do they know what suggestion I'm asking them to experience? Like, we need to remember that when we are hypnotizing someone, what we're really doing is just having them imagine clearly a well-defined concept, and then saying, hey, this well-defined concept is outside your control.
Oh, okay, it's like you're molding the concept.
Yeah, and hypnotists, like, I would say that's the main thing we all make mistakes on. And you see in videos when you record yourself doing hypnosis, that nearly every single suggestion you give actually comes off perfect. If someone's giving you enough attention and listening to you, chances are they're a freaking good subject. But we typically don't realize how we're messing up our words, our language, and kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. And then saying, oh, that person's a bad subject. But you check on the videotape, and they weren't a bad subject. They were spot on. They just did exactly what you required of them in the best of their ability to the language that you're using and the frame that you're putting out and the intent. Right. That's something that, if I'm teaching someone, I try and get that straight across. It's just the difference between getting results like less than 20% of people and maybe getting over 50% of people hypnotized. Like, because you just see people drop out who you're not communicating right to. Like, I used to say, use as many synonyms to describe the thing you want them to imagine as possible. But now I would say, just every synonym you choose, every description, be very careful that the person you're speaking to really understands what you mean by that. Because if they don't, you might just be losing them.
Oh, okay, that definitely makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. All these little tweaks. I mean, I've seen hypnotists, and I don't want to go on about myself, but I've seen hypnotists who have not had failures for long periods of time. And then other mums, it's like they're on the rocky road, and then they'll freaking get everyone again. And we're always trying to work out why is that when you get it perfect? What is that perfect run? And these little tweaks are the ways of getting ahead. The ways of, like, I mean, I'm sure it's hard for people out there who are learning hypnosis to have their first few failures. I know some people have the strength to see through those failures, but I'm hoping if we get a more clear method, then people won't experience that struggle when they learn hypnosis that some people seem to be having. Because I'm aware that a lot of people who do courses don't necessarily carry on as hypnotists. And I think if hypnosis was clear, everyone in the world could learn hypnosis, and it'd be a piece of cake.
I would like to comment on the whole struggling thing. Me, I would say in all, I guess in real life interactions, I've probably hypnotized maybe 15 people, maybe 20. And people probably would imagine I've hypnotized more considering I have my own website. Luckily for me, most of the people I've hypnotized, it's actually been successful. The induction I've actually used for the most part has been the handshake induction, and I found that to be an excellent induction.
Okay.
Now, for the people that are, I guess, just starting out, and even for me, I found if you tell people that you're a hypnotist, you're either going to get, like Jacqueline says, you're going to get one of two reactions. You're going to get that surprise, like, oh, really, what's it like? How's it feel like? Or you're going to get them completely running in the opposite direction.
I would say any reaction's a good reaction. I sometimes see it like, I used to say when someone's got a good poker hand, and then you can feel their concentration in the room. You can feel like they're very on it. They're like, and it doesn't matter if they're trying to bluff their way out of it or lie or they're going all in. Whatever they're doing doesn't matter. It's the fact that they're on it that matters. The fact that they seem to be suddenly present. And I would say anyone who has some kind of strong reaction to the fact that you're a hypnotist, right, they don't have to be talking to you. Like, they could be doing a million other things. The fact that they believe that by building this relationship with you is going to get them anywhere should show that they are responsive. I've been saying this line recently, and saying, if you could borrow a freaking cigarette or you could borrow something off a girl, and then you continue the conversation, and you never actually outline that you like the girl, then you've probably got enough compliance and responsiveness to close her anyway. There is no need for all these routines. And it's the same with subjects. It's like, I see it as a competition of attention. Everything is competing for their sole moment of concentration. But if they've chose you, then that's a freaking good sign. And if they haven't chose you, then clearly you're not interesting enough, or seem you can offer enough good into their life, or maybe you don't seem that you know enough about them for you to be a good option for them to kind of help them with their life. Because that's what it all comes down to in the end. No one's going to do something that makes them unhappy or makes their life worse. Even if it might seem that hypnotists do make people do routines that might seem silly, the people are only really doing the routines because they believe the hypnotist knows something about their personality that they don't know about themselves. And they gain that as kind of an insight into themselves, and that's why they comply. But I sound like, I don't want to sound like one of those old school, it's all compliance style people. What I'm saying is there is this cognitive dissonance, and it definitely feels like it's never a choice. But, I mean, life wants to exist. It will do everything to compete to make sure it exists, and humans are just the same. So, if they believe that you're going to help them exist, that you're going to enrich their life, then sure, they'll be a good subject.
Oh, okay, that's a good frame to come across, that you can actually bring a lot of positive change into somebody's life.
Yeah, but even just by being a positive person, even by being a strong figure, even just leaning back when you talk as opposed to leaning forwards, even just touching someone on the shoulder lightly, these are all ways of indicating that you are going to be good for this person, and also getting that person to invest into the process with you. I mean, you might notice a lot of times that the subjects who you get are really good are because you isolated the targets, so to speak. So they might be with their friends, then you move them away from their friends, and then hypnotize them, and then you're like, oh my god, they turn out to be a good subject. Well, they turn out to be a good subject because you managed to isolate them from their friends. Because they've put this huge amount of investment into believing that you and her, or, sorry, I talk about hypnotizing girls all the time, you and them have this connection, and this is more important than the connection they have with their friends. Like, already completely hypnotic. Like, hypnosis started way before the induction.
So it's like they put a lot of their trust and faith in you to guide them to a better place.
Yeah, it's always the best place. Even if it's just that you seem massively strong, or even if it's just that you seem like you understand or listen to them when they speak. Like, if they just feel that you get them. So yeah. I think that's always a good phrase to have, like, frame to have that, what is it? I know you. Yeah. Sometimes I go out and I think, I know you. And I tell myself that when I look at someone. Because then they kind of trapped into that frame. And it's a very convincing frame, because imagine for a moment that someone did know you, and then all your concerns that you have about your life are suddenly, like, can be helped by this person because they know you so well and they probably have advice.
I've always been really interested in mentalism. Are there any products that you could recommend that can teach somebody a lot about cold reading?
Yeah, Ian Rowland's Full Facts Cold Reading. He's a UK mind reader. He pretty much came with half the stuff on cold reading. He's amazing. He's got loads of audio stuff out as well, and he runs a course in London. I think it's £200 or £400. He probably runs it 4 or 5 times a year. With regards to cold reading outside of his materials,
yeah, I know Ian Rowland. There's the other guy. Trying to remember his name. It's something words. Kenton, I believe, a magician.
Oh, Kenton Kepper. Well, okay. So, yeah, I mean, I could back up Kenton in this instance. And I hope if he ever hears this, he doesn't think I'm having a dig. But I've seen a few books, and they've kind of implied that there's 8 personality types. And they talk about hypnotizing people or suggesting or using people for routines that have kind of what I would describe as an id-type personality. So they call them a heart-shaped personality or something like that. And then to only work with those people. I see this as a hugely limiting belief. And I think you actually create that only an 8% of people who are good subjects through having that belief. Really, everyone can fall in love. Everyone can be hypnotized. Everyone can pay attention to you. It's just about creating the right moment. Right? So, that's why I'm not going ahead and saying, yeah, Kenton's stuff's amazing, but obviously, like, what I don't know who I'm referring to when I say we, what we've tried to do is we've tried to slowly define this concept of what a street hypnotist is. Back before the noughties, there were only stage hypnosis courses and hypnotherapy courses because people back then only wanted to learn skills that were going to enhance their career. So hypnosis was a career choice, and the reason for that is because job security was still pretty strong. So what you did, you ended up doing for life. But now, into the noughties, job security dropped off, and then people only learn skills because they want to learn the skill, because who knows where it will lead. And of course, YouTube and Facebook and stuff change hypnosis also, in the sense that I kind of think the way hypnosis is represented makes it something that people want to learn. It makes something that people of different groups of cultures are interested in. And then you get different fascination responses from different subsections of society. That's not to say that only certain people can be hypnotized, but it's just to say that there's a way of communicating to people what to be fascinated and interested on when you announce yourself at the beginning of a conversation. So in the UK, we use the Darren Brown metaphor. We say, hey, I'm just like Darren Brown. And I know performers hate saying that term. And then over here, sometimes you might say, I'm a bit like Chris Angel, I'm a bit like David Blaine, but I work with the mind. So I think these are good ways of... I've heard some people say, have you seen the film Inception? And then use that as a way of leading people in to, this is going to be something about the mind that's going to be really interesting for you. But I think that's kind of it in general. Like, whatever you say should be said to the person, and you should never just give too much away at the same time. Yeah, I'm going to pause with that.
With you talking about how you folks in the UK use, I'm kind of like Darren Brown, or here in the States we can be like, I'm like David Blaine or any other performer that's from America, that's already giving me ideas for lines running through my head that I could possibly use at the bar tonight.
So what's been shown in research in the last 2 years, particularly put together by Oxford University, I think they've called it the Oxford Handbook of Hypnosis or something like that, or hypnotism. It's done stacks and stacks of studies, and a huge portion of these studies show that hypnosis isn't necessarily as well defined as we used to think. Typically, hypnosis becomes what you announced it to be in the pre-talk. So, and then it's not just the pre-talk, it's also your attitude and character that illustrates that something's going to happen. And it's going to be strong, and you're going to experience some loss of control. And then you might lose people on that because those people want control. But if you lose people, then you gain them back by giving them control back to them. If you say, no, look, you do this, and then the moment they seem to be complying all the way with them doing it, then you take the choice away and make it automatic again. But that's what a pre-talk is supposed to do. And these metaphors are all good ways of doing that. And I'm sure there's a billion others that people can come up with. And I've heard some pretty crazy ones from people who train in hypnosis and even in PUA. So people who know them all the time, and some of them are freaking genius. Like, even if you think about the avatar that Mystery has going on. I don't know if you know the Pickup Artist Mystery.
Nah, if you want, you can explain it. I've probably heard about it.
Yeah, okay, he's, okay, a lot of pickup artists believe in this thing called peacocking, which is where you wear extreme items of clothing to illustrate an avatar. So you create a sense of personality in the person's mind that you're speaking to before you ever speak to them, by dressing in a certain way and giving a certain look. But also this is used to create attention and thus gain responsiveness from people in, say, a nightclub who see you simply because you're wearing those outlandish items of clothing, and you grab hold of those people and use routines on them in order to later clothe them for, say, a personal gain. I think that came out as clear as possible. So,
yes. No, I'm sorry.
I think hypnotists, like, I guess I can quote Ant on this. So Ant always says, I can't spot a good subject. And he says at the beginning of training courses, the reason he says that is to say, look, don't go out expecting you can spot good subjects. Which is why I guess I criticise Kent and Cather's materials, because they kind of they believe they can spot good subjects. But when Ant says that, he's not. He could qualify it, and he later does on in the courses, and he goes like this. But until I say I'm a hypnotist, the moment you say you're a hypnotist, then you can spot who a good subject is, because their eyes are still on you. And it's not necessarily about being a hypnotist. You could, any look, any responsiveness to anything that you do implies that they're going to comply and be responsive to you. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you give me a good load of information here.
Yeah. In PUA it's called spotting IOIs. In hypnosis it's called looking to subjects. And when street hypnosis began in the UK, say 3 years ago, where you'd get hordes of street hypnotists that didn't really ever exist before, walking from bar to bar, I used to think, when I was with these guys, I used to think, why are you walking from bar to bar? What are you looking for? But I guess what they're expecting is, when they say the word hypnosis, to see someone who's interested. Typically, before we knew how all this worked, we used to hypnotize someone, expecting that they might not be a good subject, hoping that the good subject would be watching with their eyes wide open, then we grab the person watching, and then hypnotize them, and then them turning out to be a good subject. All this just shows that everyone is a good subject. It's just a matter of framing it. And, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the frame you put out there.
Yeah. And different frames probably make different people responsive to you and different people not. For example, I typically see this with the frame of dominance. Sometimes it's necessary to display some kind of strength in your own confidence, a bit of ego. And then other times you need to downplay your ego, else you lose the person you're speaking to. And this changes as you go across, say, California, where you sound like a distant Californians, where the ego is big, and then you go to New York, and the ego is lower, and you kind of have to lower your own ego, but still kind of tailor it to them. Yeah, hopefully I haven't lost anyone with that.
No, hopefully. I mean, I'm sure people listening to this, people that know about hypnosis and NLP probably have very open minds and can easily digest that information.
Yeah, I hope that, because I would go over like the fine details of then how to hypnotize, but I felt that was the language patterns and whatnot. I thought that was covered fairly earlier in the conversation. And now we're going into the general details about the subject spotting and fascination and building fascination. See, I see fascination as the more emotionally locked into someone is to you. I call it a monopoly of attention. So when you've kind of built a relationship with that person, it's like, because they've invested so much time and effort into you, it's like they believe in you more than they believe in, say, other things that their attention's been bid for. Bright lights, loud sounds, other people making noise. Because they've got this affiliation with you and they believe you're making their life better.
The one last thing I would like to ask you is about the word, or even the phrase, I'm a hypnotist. A lot of people will kind of run from that. Anthony has talked about saying, like, I'm a performer. Do you know of any other phrases that could work? So I know you guys have your head hacking group. Can you recommend any other phrases?
This is one thing that people on training courses, particularly on maybe the PUA courses in particular, they ask for. They really, really don't want to say they're a hypnotist, and they really want to play with different words. And there's some hypnotists out there, and definitely, we probably won't proceed to believe in this, who believe that if you don't mention your hypnotist, it's not going to work. That's not true. The amount of times...
That's a load of bollocks.
The amount of times I do a hand stick unannounced, and I don't mention anything about hypnosis. But, anything that kind of implies that maybe you want the mind, but in truth you don't even need that. You can just literally run stuff and it works. I tell you what does happen though if you run the stuff and you haven't set it up as a mind experiment kind of frame. Particularly when you make the subject experience a loss of control, so you might say, you forgot your name, try and say your name, really, you can't say it. So I see that as you give two suggestions there. One that says you forgot your name, and the other suggestion is to try and remember it and realize you can't. This creates this feeling of, I think this widens the cognitive dissonance, because you actually gave two contradictory suggestions, and this contradiction makes someone consciously aware that they're struggling. And that's what makes them consciously aware that something strange is happening, aka being hypnotized. If they don't know it's hypnosis, then they have to frame it under some other way. So I would say there is a risk that if you don't frame it and then you do a routine like that someone might say, maybe you drugged me, or something along those lines.
Or maybe he's a witch doctor.
Yeah, someone will think those things if you do those kind of routines unannounced. Typically girls.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure.
So,
I've known.
So I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing hypnosis in the same way if you're gonna play around with what type you're doing hypnosis for. I guess the reason we all do hypnosis is always for a goal. We're always trying to achieve something for ourselves and for the subject we're speaking to. So I imagine that whatever you say you are needs to tie into your goal. And then the way you perform hypnosis. For example, if your goal was to say get girls, I would not recommend doing routines that make her feel that she has no control over the process. She's still hypnotized even if she has control, because she's still responding to you.
Definitely you want to be ethical.
Yeah, and if you make someone experience cognitive dissonance who is a girl, they're just going to think she's going to get scared. But we don't want her to be scared in that instance, so we would never say things like, try and resist me and realize you can't. Because then that becomes a dodgy situation.
That does become really dodgy.
Yeah, but then you can, so the way you get around that is by never giving the suggestion that makes the cognitively aware of it. So you can just say, and you're experiencing this result because you're experiencing this result. Hey, you feel really good, and you can't stop smiling, right? And it's like every time you look at me, you can't stop smiling. You feel that good feeling when you see me? See, there, what you've done is you've never stopped her resist. You've never caused her to resist. She's never going to think, oh yeah, I'm hypnotized, or oh yeah, he's a wizard, or oh yeah, I'm drugged. She's going to think, oh yeah, he's a nice guy, and I'm smiling, I can't stop smiling. So whenever you do hypnosis, it's always about the result. And it's very easy just to fall into performing a routine of the way they wrote from the internet, or the way they wrote from books. But that's okay if you're doing stage hypnosis, or or maybe okay if you're doing street hypnosis, but then the argument from some stage hypnotists is street hypnosis needs to have a purpose, perhaps. And maybe that is just private performances in the local pub, but maybe you're doing street hypnosis because you want to achieve something else and you haven't properly defined that goal.
Yeah, it's, like I said, always be ethical and realize that one thing I've realized is
don't ever make someone feel bad.
Yeah.
Always make the person you're speaking to feel good. Because realize every suggestion you do give really does come off. Even if you think, oh yeah, this suggestion is necessary for this hypnosis routine, it might be miscalibrated in the situation you're doing it in. One routine that works in the bedroom is for the bedroom, another routine that you do in the pub is for a pub, another routine you do on stage is for the stage.
Yeah, you definitely want to